It's fall, y'all. Off season is here, right? Well, we could argue about what off season is. Does it actually exist and all that goofy stuff? But we're not going to do that today. We're recording this kind of after the turn of September, and as we get into October and December, it's a natural time of year for athletes to take some time away from structured training, and they start to think about next year. They start to plan goals, races, events, and they start thinking about hiring a coach or maybe switching a coach for 2023. So I thought it'd be a good fit to have a conversation about what goes into finding a great coach. In particular, how we do it at CTS, and then give you, the listeners, a bit more insight into what could be helpful in your journey if you're starting to make some of these bigger decisions in your athletic life. So I've got some of the best in the biz to talk to today. He's a longtime friend, and he's the CTS Athlete Services Director, Dominic Ginto. Dom, welcome to the show.
What's up, man?
Yeah, not much, man. Nada. We're just kind of cruising away on a rainy, on and off rainy kind of gray day up here in Northern Maryland. I don't know. What's going on there in Colorado?
We got rain going on here in Colorado, too. It's just
what?
For you. But as Colorado is, it'll probably be 80 and sunny in about 15 minutes. So
yeah, full stop. Yeah.
That's how we roll.
Yeah. Living there for 10 years or whatever. It plays with your emotions, I think, this time of year, because you go back and forth between like, I need to be out riding my bike. And then you're like, oh no, it's rainy and I just need to be cozy inside. Back and
but
forth.
It changes hourly. Like, through the day, you're like, oh yes, it's fall. And then an hour later, you're like, oh, it's 80. Hero dirt in the morning from rain at night. And then, so these are first world
Get a
problems.
suntan in the afternoon. Yeah, for sure.
So.
Well, Dom, I mean, this episode's going to be a little different than some other ones. And I mean, having you on the podcast always livens things up and makes things interesting. But some of our listeners, they may be cringed when I introduced you because they're like, oh, the sales guy is on the podcast. So before they hit pause or next, are we going to have a salesy conversation here, or what are we doing today?
This isn't about sales at all. We've got the greatest coaches in the world at CTS, and I like to consider myself more of a kind of a presenter. I offer what we have, and the coaches that are available, and the service that we provide, and people can make that decision on their own. This has never been hiring a coach is never something that's an impulse purchase. It's not at least it shouldn't be a vanity purchase, or something that somebody should be sold on, or negotiating rates or anything else like that. This is, and it's one of the reasons why at CTS we kind of we've really started the idea of speaking to coaches before you even hire them. We're offering the opportunity to speak to coaches and find the coach that works best for you before you even get started with, if that's not, I guess you could call that a sales tactic, if you will. But it's not, hey, pay us $100 first. And if you choose not to take the coach, then we'll give you your money back. It's just, we feel confident enough in what we have here to get a little experience on what that coach process is like. And but no discount codes, no sales coupons or anything. Just talking about how to pick a coach.
Yeah, and that's, I think our method it's unique, it's different. And I think Dominic's, and he'll get into himself here in a minute, but the way he does it, I think, is very unique. So I felt comfortable bringing on the podcast and not be too salesy, but more education based. So Dom, I mentioned that you've been with the company forever, and it's kind of a unique point that many, probably most of our CTS athletes that we have today, anybody who's come to our camps, or even former athletes, know who you are, But just in case we have some listeners on here that haven't had a phone call or email with you, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you're doing when you're not signing people up, and what were you doing before this?
Yeah, so we don't have to go. We don't have to go too far back because I'm really old.
Not too far, but no one's that interested, Dom. But just kidding.
Yeah, so former special operations Marine. I was in infantry. I was attached to reconnaissance units. Did hostage rescue in Manila and Desert Storm, and that was a big part of my life a long time ago. From there, I was actually managing a company in the environmental industry. I started cleaning oil tanks in New Jersey and kind of moved myself up into that world. Had a really horrible bike accident in 1999, getting ready for my first half Ironman, and decided it's so cliche that life was too short, and I didn't want to end up like all those 50-year-olds that I worked with at the time that hated their life, but were stuck with the job that they had because they created this lifestyle for their family and so forth. So I literally quit my 6-figure income in my late 20s, rented my house out on the beach in New Jersey, and moved to Las Vegas to become a multi-day backcountry mountain bike tour guide for $70 a day. And after that, kind of started a couple of businesses, ended up selling an event company to Lifetime Fitness. I put on triathlons, running races, cycling races in Vegas and in New Jersey, and didn't want to move to Chanhassen after that. So just stayed with Lifetime, and had the opportunity to come to CTS as Director of Athlete Services. And I've been here for 9.5 years. Been in Colorado Springs for the same amount of time. And when I'm not here at CTS, matching athletes with coaches, I ride my mountain bike a lot. I coach the Cheyenne Mountain High School and junior high mountain bike team. I'm also the skills coach for the state. So I coach all the other coaches in the state in skills and how to teach those skills to the high school kids. And I have the 2 of the coolest daughters ever. And otherwise, that's what I do.
That's super cool. I didn't know you were doing the skill stuff. That's
what's that? I said I'm newly single, by the way.
Great. So now it is a sales opportunity for you.
Sales pitch.
No, that's cool. I didn't know you were doing the skill stuff with the coaches in the high school team. That's super cool. Yeah. Another good reason to do this podcast. Get caught up properly. Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks for the background. I mean, I think for our listeners, Dom is a very unique individual with a very colorful kind of background, and what he brings to the table is a lot of real world experience and relatability. And I think that's been proven in kind of, the success I think we've had as a collective group of coaches to get paired up with athletes. And we'll talk about that process now as we get into the show. So Dom, kind of the first question I have for you is, for athletes who have already, say, decided, like in their head, right, that it's time to hire a coach. They come to you and they get you on the phone, or they get, they send you an email. What do you hear from these athletes who have already decided?
About what they want, what they're looking for? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So I would say that most coaches or most athletes are looking for, that's interesting. Most athletes are looking for accountability,
mm-hmm.
and someone to explain to them why they're doing what they're doing. Why am I doing intervals 3 times this week? Why am I not doing intervals at all for the next month? Why am I doing this? So they're looking for the why, but the accountability part is huge. I hate to admit it, but I'm confident that one of the biggest reasons, one of the biggest additional reasons why someone hires a coach is because they get this captive audience to share information about their rides with. Not specifically, I bought this new bike, but they'll share those things. But mostly, let's face it, our families love us. They support what we do, but they can't possibly hear about the 25-minute climb up the canyon that they did, and they beat their Strava time, and they're feeling so much stronger. They now have a coach to share that stuff with, and then the coach can respond back to them with information as to why that happened. And look at that. Look back at your data. Look where you came from, and it helps the athlete piece everything together as to and allows them to continue to move forward with this new energy and new excitement as to, wow, look what all the work that I'm putting in actually works. And then with that accountability, the accountability piece really ties into our coach consults and the communication piece. You can have the greatest plan in the world, and written by the greatest coach in the world. Unless you have a want and desire to talk to your coach each week and share with them your information, the plan is not going to be nearly as successful as one from a coach that you communicate well with. So when you have that initial communication, that initial matchup, and that accountability piece kind of comes naturally, we want to make our coach happy, because in turn we're happy about their response towards the fact that we did all of our training, we did all of our intervals, we've been eating right. If you had somebody following you around all day, kind of monitoring, what you ate and how you slept and how you talked to other people, we'd all probably be better people, right? So we're just doing it from an athletic standpoint.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense, and it's almost, to that point, it's like they're trying to put this puzzle together. They've got some missing pieces, right? And the coach can come in and help fit that piece into that area, right? Yeah, and then it helps to tell the story.
Sure, and let's face it, we get doctors and engineers, and I single them out specifically because the doctors have the physiology understanding. They have they have that science background. Engineers will tell you, I know how I could make a strain gauge, and I can build my own power meter. Same with the doctors. They know everything about this, but they don't know how to put it into a package to help make them faster, peak for an event in 6 months. And that's what a coach does. So not only is there that knowledge, but there's also the time aspect of it. We're all capable of cleaning our own homes, but how much is your time worth? And maybe a couple $100 every few weeks is far better to spend that money on have someone else to clean your house than take 4 hours every Sunday to do it yourself. So, and that's one of the things that a coach can do is really make sense out of a really challenging problem, especially if you have a lot of events that you're training for, and you've got A events and B events and C events, and you want to peak for certain ones. Unless you do this all the time, you're going to be challenged to find the right scientific formula to kind of put that stuff into place. And that's what our coaches do.
Yeah. I mean, couldn't agree more. You bring up some good points there, just in terms of expediting some, a knowledge base of either how to train with a power meter, how to train in general, what the difference is between heart rate and power, all that kind of stuff. Linking it all together is obviously super important, but that's probably coming from somebody, like I said, somebody who already decided to hire the coach, right? They're looking for that accountability aspect and they know it. So when someone, what should someone, if they're thinking about hiring a coach, they haven't got there yet, what should they be, thinking about or asking you when it comes to hiring a coach? I mean, does it come down to, I need to figure out, my exact goals and my race calendar for next year? Or is it like, how how much does stuff cost? I mean, do I need to tell them all the bikes that I have in my arsenal, like in order to pair me well? Like, what should they be thinking about here?
Let's start with what they shouldn't be thinking about.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna break a lot of people's hearts right now. I don't, and nor do any of the coaches, care what kind of bike you have. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as it relates to the science of helping make you faster. The number of bikes you have, if you have a power meter and don't have a power meter, that's a big deal. If you have a power meter, we can be better coaches. And you can be a better coach with more information. So that type of information matters. That type of bike doesn't matter. Even specifically the races that you're planning on doing, and I would say that probably 50% of our athletes don't do races at all. Maybe an occasional Gran Fondo that they participate in with friends, but it's not a race. The majority of our athletes, are a good portion of them, I would say probably 50% of them, come in because they just want to be more fit and they want to keep up with their friends on the weekends. And that's a big deal. You know, their race is the Saturday group ride. Their race is, maybe, Tuesday Night Worlds at the most. The information that helps me when an athlete is coming in and looking for a coach is more what that person is like. And the reason why I say that is because I, at least here at CTS, can operate from a beginning point of knowing that all of our coaches have the ability to help make you faster, help get you stronger on the bike or on the run, triathlon, whatever it may be. All of our coaches have the ability to do that. Again, that's going to be science and their own education and experience to be able to put that together. If you come into that, assuming that is the case, everyone is apples to apples in their ability to get you specifically ready for an event. Now, the real goal is not researching someone's diploma where they have, what races they've done or who they've coached or how long they've been doing it. The real goal now is just to find the coach that you communicate best with. And that is the ultimate goal of a coach consult. So the information that I'm looking for is I want to know, are you married? Do you work 80 hours a week? Do you work 40 hours a week? Are you retired? Do you have dogs? What other activities do you like to do? Are you a rock climber and ride motorcycles? Are you training for other events? That's probably one of the biggest things that we see now in the athlete and coaching world is there are still a lot of them, but there are so many more athletes now that are less one-dimensional. There are ultra runners that are also doing 2 gravel races a year, or gravel racers that are doing 1 ultra race a year, and they're doing a triathlon relay with friends. Oh, and they're also, climbing K2 next year. There's so many people have so many different passions and different sports that they want to. And some want to train for one, and some can do another as just with the residual, fitness that they have from another sport. But all of that information is really important when it comes to us pairing you with some initial coaches to speak to. And general information. What else do you do? Do you have dogs? What's your passion? Because often if several of those other things match up and you happen to, fly hot air balloons, and we have a coach that also does that, well, what better opportunity to pair people that are like-minded? So.
Yeah, exactly. The hot air balloonists must thrive together.
It's a big world. There's a lot of them out there. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like, Coop did a podcast with you kind of talking about this for a little bit more specific to ultra runners, and it's pretty good. But, I gotta steal a phrase from him. I mean, you're essentially playing Match.com for athletes to coaches, essentially.
Sure.
So is there a secret algorithm / like stacks of spreadsheets and stuff that you use, or like what's your secret sauce here?
I'm afraid to share it. Actually, it's only because I don't really know what it is. I've been doing this for a long time, and two, somewhere prior to this, I was also a bartender in Vegas for 10 years. I'll toot my own horn here. It's nothing that I've actively worked on. I have a really good read for people and ask a lot of questions that are really based on expectations and what exactly they're looking for. My tenure here for 9.5 years of doing this, with very few, if any, complaints about what goes on, and I've dealt with a lot of different situations, and on a daily basis, I get emails back that say, "Wow, were you following me? And did you have more information than you got in that form? Because man, you really patched me together with the right coaches." I will say that I read between the lines of everyone's coach consult forms. I like to think that I have a really good insight on what I think they may be matched well with. That being said, part of that process is to take a chance sometimes, and oftentimes when it's just in writing, it's a matter of providing two really different personalities, whereas the expectations of the athlete and what they would get from the coach are going to be the same. It just may be presented in a different way. So one coach may be a little bit more outspoken, a little more gregarious, a little bit more excitable, if you will, and one may be a bit more reserved. But for the most part, when someone comes to me and says they're more data focused and they want the science and they want to see numbers, there are a handful of coaches that I'm absolutely going to pair them with, and there's a handful of coaches that I'm definitely not going to pair them with, because some have their strengths and some are, everyone has their strengths, but they're, not every athlete is going to fit together with them. So sometimes I'll go out on a limb and I get proven wrong occasionally, where an athlete will pick the coach that I wasn't really planning on. But it's a really cool process.
Yeah, and it's a human process, and that's the reason why I asked the question, because I think we're getting into an age where we want AI to take over and drive a lot more things now, including coaching itself. I mean, we had a whole panel talking about AI in our last CTS summit, as well as like a Training Peak summit, USAC summit. I mean, it's here. It's not that great yet. But my point is, with this athlete pairing and in the industry where we're at with service, I haven't seen anything else that matches well other than like a thoughtful human talking to another thoughtful human and thinking about this pairing process. And your track record's darn good. It's there. But my whole point in all of it is, when you're calling us, you're getting a real human on the line. When they fill stuff out, a real human is reading that to match you with another real human.
Yeah. It's cool to be able to answer that too. So oftentimes I'll get an athlete that'll say, you paired me with this coach. Well, they take me at this level. They're a really high level coach, and I get to respond to them with like, dude, it was me that paired them with you. It wasn't some machine that just said next on the list is Adam Pulford, and
yeah, exactly.
You get matched. No, we're know that when you've submitted a coach consultation form, the following morning or that day, I'm sitting in front of the computer reading every line that you wrote, going through my list of, we call it the hot list of coaches that are available to take on new athletes, and pairing you with the best coach possible. Something that's interesting too is that we also have, and it's so impressive to look at, and we have two different sheets, one for ultra runners and one for cyclists. And the coaches have completed this spreadsheet, and it's events that they've actually done themselves and at events that they have coached for. Now, keep in mind, we have some coaches that have been here for 22 years. Those lists are pretty extensive. So oftentimes, that's one of the avenues that I utilize in matching athletes with coaches, especially if it's a really unique event. That's not just maybe a standard Grand Fondo or something like that. It's the survival of the Shawinigan triathlon, which is totally unlike any other triathlon out there, or a Trans Rockies, or somebody's climbing Everest, something that's very unique and very specific, that I feel like that coach would be a good match for. So that being said, so these spreadsheets list all of those, so I can just search those lists and find the coaches that match up with those athletes that have experience at that event.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think, it's good to take a quick pause here for those who have never, interacted, say, with CTS or you. But when you're talking about like filling out a forum or maybe calling and talking to you about these inquiries, so you get some information, you digest that information, you come up with some pairing, and then what are those like next steps? Like what does the person who gave you the inquiry, what happens after that?
So on our website, there's the opportunity to fill out what's called a coach consult, a free coach consultation, where you get 15, 20 minutes to speak with two different coaches, 15, 20 minutes each. Sometimes it goes a bit longer than that, to speak to those coaches to find out if this is a good fit. But on that form, the athlete provides how much time they have to train, their primary sport, their secondary sport, how long they've been doing this, a list of events that they may or may not have on the schedule, and the package level at which they'd like to sign up with. We have 4 package levels. Again, this is not salesy, but the reason for mentioning this is just because you want to be coached by CTS doesn't mean you get Adam Pulford or you get Jason Koop, because coaches with different experience coach at different package levels. You get a different level of communication. You get a different level of experience from that coach. So, so when you mention, I'd like to work at premium or ultimate, which are the higher levels, there's going to be a certain group of coaches that I'm going to look at for those levels. Those levels, those package levels, do not indicate what type of athlete you are. So elite athletes don't sign up at ultimate, and beginner athletes sign up at select. Oftentimes, elite athletes sign up at select because they need less communication with their coach. They understand what's going on. They need the plan. They need the plan that's rooted in science, and they need a conversation each week. But they don't need to be on the phone with their coach for hours each week. They don't need their data analyzed constantly, that type of thing. So I think a lot of athletes a lot of times will get too hung up on the package level, the level of the coach. I think that first step should be speaking to the coaches initially. But so on that form, they provide that information. With all of that information, I am then going to go to the hot list and find the coaches that are available. Every coach that's on our website, I believe there are 60 coaches on that website, give or take a couple, is not always available to take athletes. And as disappointing as that may be to someone, Uh, think of it as a lawyer or a doctor. You don't want your surgeon. You don't want to be the 100th surgery that week. If he only has the capacity for 90, right?
Right.
So, and it's the same thing with coaches. Just be like, oh, Adam, can't you just squeeze me in? Can't you just add another one? Well, someone's going to suffer there because you only have so much time in a day to provide to those. So, our coaches and our management of the coaches here are very in tune to how many coaches an athlete can take, how many athletes a coach can take. And what their availability is to provide the level of coaching that's expected of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, like what we've talked about so far is you gather as much information as possible, right? There's a lot of like personality assessment that goes on in terms of like kind of checking the mental boxes of here. Okay, a couple goal things here. And then probably also just like, like some sort of hobby or life relatability, kids versus no kids, hot air balloons versus motorcycles, right?
Right.
But then also like the expectation, right? Like what are those expectations? And that kind of helps filter in to the package level of sorts, right? Time with the coach. And, finally it sounds like there's a little bit of a gut instinct that, you learn through years of dealing with people, whether it's serving them drinks or pairing them with coaches.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important that to have that information initially, because then once we make the connection of the athlete and the coach, so from there I'm going to take the availability of the coaches, the package level and everything, and see that this is initially on paper at least a good match. Make that introduction via email. Dominic meet Adam, Adam meet Dominic. I thought you guys should talk for 15, 20 minutes about coaching philosophy, training expectations to see if this is a good fit. Our coaches have a really cool calendar that you just click on the calendar and pick times that are available for you and for the coach. So the coach has openings on their calendar. You pick a 20-minute time slot and you put yourself in there. They give you a call, and they're going to ask you, what brought you to CTS and what are your expectations from working with a coach? And that kind of kicks things off for sharing information about each other. And it's just two people talking about the sport and talking about their families or what their challenges are in kind of hitting their goals. And then from there, the athlete gets the opportunity to pick one of those coaches to be their coach moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also pretty cool that, first of all, from the athlete standpoint, they get to speak with somebody, and it's in the end, it's their choice. Like there's no one else making that choice, really. I mean, you help assist, right? And as you said before, you try to provide all the information possible so that they can help make the best decision possible on their end. And I'll say, like, if I'm buying something that's thousands and thousands of dollars, like in the end, like if they, are a year-long athlete or multi-year athlete, I would hope that I have, that decision, right? Or kind of that power to make that decision. And then the flip side of the coin too, like on the coaching end of things is if I'm taking on an athlete, I know I'm going to be spending a lot of time with this person, be it virtually, on the phone, in person, on the bike, whatever. And so, I don't know, over the past 7 years, I don't think I've taken an athlete where I haven't either met them face to face or talked to them on the phone and thought judiciously about, should I take this person on or not? Like I won't do it at all.
So it doesn't happen all the time, Adam, but one thing we skipped at the beginning, one of the things you're going to find from me is 100% transparency and honesty all the time. I can't live any other way. But I'm going to tell you, we've had coaches call and go, I won't work with that athlete even if they pick me. So
That's how it should be, in my opinion.
That really is. And you know what? That athlete almost shouldn't be upset anymore than the coach isn't upset. None of our coaches, and that's one of the cool things too, is none of our coaches, it's not a competition. They don't feel like it's a competition because you're not choosing, you're just choosing who you relate to best. Not, I picked them because they're better looking than you, or they, I saw their degree or whatever. The athlete has the ability to choose, the reason for selecting the coach. But what I tell them all the time is, and it's one of the coolest parts of my job, is the fact that the majority of the conversations that I have with athletes post consult with two coaches is, dude, you sent me two coaches that I want to pick both of them, and I don't know how to. And people schedule calls with me all the time. There's not a day that goes by that I don't have a call with an athlete that says, hey, I talked to both coaches, and I need you to help me pick one.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's a good situation to be in. And my response is always going to be, go with your gut. But that gut feeling that you had when you got off the phone, which coach did you think to yourself, that's who I want to talk to each week? That's who I want to share how crappy my workout was today. That's who I want to share with why I got terrible sleep last night. That's who I want to share my lofty goals that I don't even want to tell my friends because it sounds crazy that I want to make the national team, or that I plan on winning, a particular Grand Fondo, or KOMing a Strava segment. Whatever it is, that's the person that I want to share this information with. And that's who you should go with. Not the person who, I don't know, has another cool podcast or has a really cool Instagram website or, page.
Those
or
podcasters,
like
man, they're the worst.
Yeah. I wouldn't pick any of them, or, salespeople, whatever. But that's my message to every one of them. And when I say that, this kind of light bulb, you can feel it through the phone, kind of goes off, and they go, okay, I know who that is. I know the answer now. And I will say this doesn't happen often. And when I say it doesn't happen often, I'm saying like every few months. So it only a handful of times a year. But it's the beauty of CTS and having the volume of quality coaches. Just maybe you realize after the first month or first 2 months, like, we don't really connect the way that I thought we were going to. I still got 6 months till my event. Hey, Dominic, is it okay if can I go back and try this other? Can I go back to work with this other coach that I spoke with? I think they may have been a better choice for me. Absolutely, it's not a problem. Again, and I've never had a coach, that other coach, say, I can't believe it. I worked with them for 2 months and they just left. All of our coaches want to see athletes have the experience that they came here for. And that is the ultimate goal, because when a coach is matched with an athlete, or an athlete's matched with a coach that they work well with, here comes the business spin on it. They stay around longer. Let's face it, man, this is still a business. It's still, but in order to do really well at this business, we not only have to have educated coaches and coaches engaging with their athletes, but we have to have athletes with coaches that they're really enjoying working with. So that is that you look behind the curtain there, and then but that's the biggest things. Match athletes with the right coaches, they stick around longer and have a better experience.
Yeah, I don't think that that's too much of a secret in that regard. No. But I think that you spoke on something, kind of the breadth of coaches that we do have. I'm gonna put that here for 2 minutes and swing back to one more question that I get on a regular basis in terms of when someone is deciding to hire a coach or not. And I get the question of, hey, this person is really good and seems to be a great coach, but this person is local. how do I decide between a local coach or a remote coach, and does it matter?
Well, there's a few different comments there. The main answer initially is going to be, even if your coach is local, the business side of this is still remote coaching. So if you're on a select package and you're paying $197 a month for a local coach, just because they're local doesn't get you riding with your coach every day. So that's an additional service. It's technically a private camp. Now, that being said, if I have one of the other things that I look at, other than events, and then the personality side of things, is if I can get an athlete together with a coach that's within, driving distance, not so that they can meet them all the time, but man, what a bonus if you've got a coach that can pair up with you, and maybe you meet for coffee, every once in a while, or you see them at a race once a year, or of course, I will always take that opportunity to try and make that match. But I often tell people, especially that are, I've had to break up with coaches before for other athletes, which is really interesting. I think there may be an industry, there may be a business in there, idea in there somewhere, where an athlete has come to us and said, I currently have a coach. I haven't quit yet. He's a local coach. I've been with him for 3 years. I should have left him 2 years ago. This sounds like every relationship of every friend that we have, right?
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say, it definitely sounds like more of a relationship issue, but yeah.
Totally. I should have left him 2 years ago. And I tell them all the time, that's so the best part about a local coach is they're all on all the group rides. You see them all the time. They're at all the races. You get to see them out on the road, and talk to them all the time. The worst part about a local coach is you see them all the time. They're at all the races. They're at all the group rides, and you see them all the time, which makes it even more difficult to kind of end that relationship sometimes. I've also found, and as most people probably realize, a lot of, not all of, a lot of local coaches are really good riders locally, that are looking to kind of offset some of their own race costs, and so forth. And a lot of them have really good information. Little background noise there. A lot of them have really good information from an experience standpoint, and can offer a lot from a tactical standpoint, especially when it comes to race tactics and maybe some fueling things on local races and so forth. But that does not make up for the science and education and overwhelming amount of broad experience that coaches like at CTS and some other of the bigger companies out there have to offer, especially if you're not meeting that coach face to face. They're going by the data that you're providing them through Training Peaks and so forth.
Yeah, and I bring it up because it's, as I said, I mean, I get the question often, and it's worthwhile to maybe create a pros and cons list for each. And I'll say this too, like, there's some great local coaches. In fact, I mean, I'm a local coach, right, of the DMV area, and sure, I have quite a few athletes that I go and do hit group rides with on a regular basis, and it is super cool to play bikes for a couple hours, give a little bit of feedback, then you go home, right? And you can talk, and there's another kind of layer of being able to talk about that. But it also goes in waves, right? Like, I travel and I'm not around very much. So I never set my coaching expectations based on I will be at the group ride or I will be at the race or whatever. It's just the cream on top, so to speak. And I would, there's some very good local coaches that have great physiology. I'd say in general, I mean, yeah, I hear what you're saying about, like, this person is a really strong rider, so they gravitated toward coaching to do more opportunities in whatever realm. It's no knock on local coaches, but I think it's it's something to consider when it comes to that, because say the local coach moves, well, then what, right? That's one thing. The business structure can be very, very different, because you may end up paying more if you structure it based on how many times you ride per week. However, if you just go Training Peaks, phone call, and maybe see him or her on the group ride once a week, how is that different than a coach, in California or Texas or whatever? So I think it is, COVID probably changes a little bit in the way that people maybe think about how you can do work and relate to people. But it's always a question that or it's always a consideration that people have when they're looking for hiring a coach.
But that, I know that this may be something that we were planning on talking about, and I'll segue right into it. But that would be, not only does your coach not have to be local, your coach also doesn't have to have done the event that you're planning on doing. So oftentimes, athletes will ask, I want a coach that's done Leadville. Wow, because some of the best coaches that we have to coach you through Leadville haven't done Leadville. Mm-mm. Renee Eastman's perfect example.
Yeah,
one of the most technically sound and science-based coaches out there that has gotten so many athletes through Leadville. She's never done Leadville. Mm-hmm. I think it's a perfect example of. I think I made the joke with Coop that let's face it. Look at some of the basketball coaches, little short, fat Italian or Jewish guys. That's like they are amazing minds but they were never the starting center for the for the Boston Celtics. So it really comes down to finding the coach that knows the game, that knows what you're looking for, and you communicate well with.
Yeah, and it's an excellent point. And let's just talk about it now, because it's in part what makes a good coach, right? And that's what I want to ask you. But since we already started to crack the candy shell of that, what's such a weird thing about sports is it's been my observation that, generally speaking, great athletes don't make great coaches. Terrible athletes don't usually make great coaches. It's somewhere in the middle. It's like the very medium athletes, sure, if they keep on taking it to the next level with kind of their education, their experiential knowledge and whatnot, generally the mediocre become great coaches. And that's because, in my opinion, you try so hard as an athlete. And I'll speak from experience. Like, I'm maybe the fast of the slow, the toughest of the not tough in everything I've done. Like, I was very medium when it comes grand scheme of things, but yet I'm very confident that I'm a great coach. But it's been through a shit ton of like failure and struggle and like empathy, because every time I do an event or have this, whatever, I'm just like, oh, I can then help somebody through that struggle. And I just like automatically just links in my brain to how I'm going to help somebody when they have the same issue, in their race or in their training or whatever, solve a problem, figure out the puzzle. And I think that is part of what makes a great coach, and why, maybe just because that person is winning every bike race, say in the world or locally, don't necessarily think that that's going to make them or qualify them as a great coach. And I think, to your point too, another example we've always used in the history of CTS is Nick White coaching Craig Alexander. Craig Alexander was one of the best Ironman world champions that have done the sport. Nick White has never done an Ironman, but he's a super smart coach, right?
Yeah.
So and that just leads to the specificity of an event that goes toward, like, if you coach long enough and you get good at coaching a broad number of things, you can really translate that into many different aspects. And I think that's a hallmark of what makes a great coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, and who's a great coach for within those great coaches, there are still coaches that are going to be a better coach.
Yeah.
For certain people.
Yeah.
A good coach for me would probably not be the super analytical, data driven. Let's look at these numbers because I immediately I want to go into maybe more of the mental side of things,
yep.
Or I want to go into, more of the skills side of things that's where I want to engage a little bit more. Otherwise, you're the coach and you do all that. Just put the numbers together and tell me what I need to do. So again, this is where that coach consult comes really into play for athletes that are looking for a coach that's a little bit more empathetic. And I've said this on other podcasts before. I like to draw the line, two extreme lines between the drill instructor and the cheerleader. And oftentimes people want a combination of the two, which is great, which is also a possibility. But some people want somebody to kick them in the ass constantly. Some people just want to be told, man, you're doing a great job. Just keep it up. You're killing it. And some people, that's all it takes. So again, kind of the overarching, theme here to this whole thing is finding the coach that you communicate best with and that works best for you. It doesn't always come from, hours on the phone with me. I can gather more information and that's great. But the opportunity, a lot of times, especially with athletes that haven't had coaches before, you don't know what you don't know. And I rarely have get feedback from athletes that come off a call and don't say, holy crap, that was such a good experience to learn. Like I didn't even know what a coach would ask me. I didn't even know what that experience would be like in speaking to a coach. It's really important to speak to both coaches. Oftentimes, someone will get off the phone with their first consult and they go, "Oh, this coach was awesome. I just want to go ahead and get started with them." Sure, in a perfect world, that makes my life really easy. But my first response is always going to be, "Did you talk to the other coach?" And they're like, "No, I really like that one." I'm like, well, "What if you really like the other one? You have the opportunity to talk to two." It's like speed dating. If you went through the first 5 minutes, then go through the next 5 minutes with the other one, and see what happens. So, anyway.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that's also that's very unique. I don't know. I don't know what other coaching companies are doing. I have some friends that I talk to on a regular basis that either have their own businesses or they're sole proprietors and they're doing recruitment and through social media and all this kind of stuff. But in my opinion, I don't know if they have anything necessarily like we have. And I think that my last point to this, and again, this is very CTSE and all this kind of stuff, but like personal plug for it is, I think when an athlete has a CTS coach, they're also able, what they either consciously or unconsciously don't know, is that they're able to leverage the collective group of the 60 plus coaches that we have. And that's a huge part of what keeps me around even after 16 years of coaching, because when I'm trying to solve a puzzle that I can't solve, I have at least 7 that I can think of on the top of my head right now that I would go to and I would get an answer within, probably immediately, but within the next 5 hours, right? Here's some help, here's some feedback with no questions asked, right?
Yeah. You're not getting just one coach. You're getting a team of coaches the hardest part is just you kind of turning around your virtual chair and asking the coach that's available right next to you, or is a text away. Hey, I got an athlete that's plateauing here with X, or they have, they're diabetic, or they're this, or and I'm at a loss right now. What have you done in the past? And if that person doesn't have it, there's 60 of them lined up behind there that will help all of our coaches. And you guys all talk each week too, mentoring meetings, continuing education, whatever it may be. There's always that ability, and you don't get that if you have just kind of a single coach that's their research is going to be Googling it, which again, not to say there's anything wrong with Google. We do it all day, but if you've got this information available to you, it's a really cool space to be in.
Yeah, and I mean, I have a hard time keeping up sometimes because when we have a company-wide meeting to bring us up to speed on the latest things that we're releasing, to the coaching roundtable, to the mentorship meeting, it's like boom, 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 and then you're trying to hit it. Like, I want to be part of something, right, that it's hard to keep up with because it keeps me going. And when I talk to other coaches, say at these, other conferences and whatnot, probably the number one thing that they want is more coaching education and collaborative opportunities, right? And that's where
going on a group ride, right?
Going on a group ride.
It's like going on a group ride. You're like, holy crap, I need to keep up with these guys. Yeah. What are they doing? And you meet with these other coaches. And again, as well educated as you are in your experience, you go to these roundtables and you're like, damn it, that guy knows, or she knows a lot. Like I need to gather that knowledge as well. It's and it keeps us coming back and striving to be better every day. And it sounds cheesy, but it's true.
Yeah, but I mean, cheesy but true for sure. And I think some of these younger coaches, especially the ultra runner coaches, man, I on a webinar, or if I'm working on a project with them, I'm just like, you guys are smarter than I am.
Committed, man. It's really cool to see.
The chips are all in, and they're smart. They're super smart. So it's fun to see that. I mean, it's fun to see the company still growing after all these years. And I think it's even more fun to be able to, be confident in like, hey, we're doing this podcast. Here's how we do it. And then you can decide if you want to kind of come in and be part of the CTS family or not. Sure. And it's, I don't know, it's just a super cool company, and I'm happy to share all of this, especially on this kind of medium of podcasting. So, I think as we kind of wrap things up here too, the takeaway here is that the coach-athlete relationship is something that CTS takes pretty seriously, because it's not only crucial for our business model, right? It's crucial for the athlete's success, the coach's success, and in kind of a round and round we go. So the more information that we have ahead of time on the athlete, the more, we can help pair them up together to ensure that kind of cyclical success. Totally. Yeah. And finally, the way we do that is very, it's very personable. I think that a human should be involved in that, even though we rely on some technology to do it as well. But it's worked beautifully for the past, 10 years, and it's only getting better. But Dom, is there anything else you want to add on to that?
No, I think the biggest thing is don't, again, I mentioned this before, it's not an impulse purchase. Get online, fill out the coach consultation form. We'll introduce you to 2 coaches. Taking a week to make this decision, schedule calls with a couple coaches to make an educated decision, and you're starting at a point where you're already coming into some confidence. You know who your coach is going to be, and you're excited about it. It is going to cause you to have so much more success than this simple, I'm purchasing a plan online, or I'm signing up with a coach that I don't really know, and I hope they're going to give me a good plan that's going to help, get me ready for this event. Take your time, ask questions, plan those calls with the coach, and and move forward that way, and know that I, at least, here's my salesy side of it is, the salesy side is, if things aren't working out or if things are going really well, you always have me to call and say, dude, this is awesome, or dude, this sucks and I need to talk to somebody about it. And there's somebody here to fix it for you. So, and that's what I do. And there's no, my only incentive is to help you, as an athlete be successful. This isn't Verizon. I'm not pairing you with a coach, and then whenever you call it back to reach somebody, it's going to be somebody else that had nothing to do with that. I'm literally the guy. Like, it's going to come back to me. So it's in my best interest to get you started off the right way, and I'm happy to talk people through it before, during, or after.
Yeah, that's cool. Man. Well, Dom, if anybody, if this podcast moves people, where can they find you? How do they connect with you?
Trainright.com, or you can email me at athleteservices@trainright.com. Spelled just the way it sounds, athleteservices@trainright.com. Again, I monitor all those emails as well. I've got Addison here that works with me, but nothing comes through that email box without coming through me first. So I'm putting myself on the spot there. So if somebody says, I sent you an email and you didn't respond, well, and I'll totally take responsibility for that.
Fair enough. You already kind of wasted my joke here, but with the fall coming up, any coaching sales coupons or promotions going on here, Dom?
The promotion is you get one of the coolest, most knowledgeable coaches in the world. There's no secret magic to or coupons that are gonna help that. But
exactly.
So yeah, just go ahead and get started, and we'll take care of you through every step of the way.
Perfect.
Say the word. I'm here.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Dom, this has been it's been a pretty fun podcast, and I think that it's been something that you and I have wanted to do for a while. I think the fall is a perfect time for it because a lot of people are either thinking about that change and hiring a coach for next year, or keep on with what they got. And in the end, it's their decision, but I think we provided some pretty darn good information for them today. So thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Now we'll let you get out for that ride.
Yeah, man. Rock and roll. Thanks, Adam.
Cool. Thanks, Dom.
Appreciate it.